And welcome back into the Dragon's Den, everybody. Hope you guys are doing well today. My name's Digital Dragon. I'm a 3D printing variety streamer here on Twitch. Welcome on in, Project and Dag Garage. Shrimp Father, hey Martin. Hey Petty Ruxpin, how's it going? And Pezlis, hey, how's it going? Hope everyone's doing well. I hope everyone's doing well. Sorry for a couple of minutes late. I had to run down and grab the package that just arrived from Amazon because, well, it has parts that we're going to need today. As I kind of alluded to in the intro or the earlier, not in the intro, but on X, I ran into a problem. And I'll go over what that problem was and what my fix action is going to be for it. So, yep, happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. We've got coffee and a desire to be constructive and get some things done. I know that's, yeah, sometimes not a good thing for some people, but yeah, I feel like being productive right now. Too many meetings today and not enough productivity, so. Mount the blasters to the wall. Nail gun? No. Yeah, definitely you got some cool blasters, get them up there. I need to do the same for mine at some point. I only have the one blaster. Can't do the real blasters, but I can put the one blaster up. So yeah, as you all know, I'm going to go to the bench camera, and as you all know, we've been working on our ZeroG Mercury 1 build here, and I want to let you guys know that I did remove the tension on the belts, and I did that for a very specific reason, and it's the fact that I was bending the motor mounts. They were starting to bend forward. What I failed to take into account was I only put M5 by 12 bolts here in the front edge, which allowed this whole thing to be pulled and rotated forward when we did the belts, because the belts are up high. And so what we've got now is we've got some M5 bolts going through the M5 spacers. The bolts are locked down. There's a little bit of room in the spacers. That's fine. That's no big deal. And that puts two bolts, the one into the Y rail and one into the rear rail on each side. And that's helping to keep things from getting pulled forward. Now, what I'm going to do, and what was suggested by Turtle Crawler, was to actually take this middle M3 out, but that would require me to take the motor off, or motor mount off, take this one out, take that one out, and remove the plate because there's a threaded insert in the middle here. Now, if I take that out and I drill these to M5, then I can put another M5 bolt there. It's a little invasive, and what I'm deciding to do instead, because this is going to be a little bit easier to attempt, is I'm going to take this rearmost bolt out. Okay, this is once again an M3 at the top, M3 at the bottom, and an M3 threaded insert. I believe I'm going to have enough room there to take this out, or I know I'm going to have enough room. I'm going to take this out, and I've got some M3 by 55 millimeter countersunk screws that just came in today. And they're nylon, but I've got some nylon. These should be just spacers, not standoffs, meaning they should not be threaded at all. So I'm going to double check. Hey, Bexy Beans, how's it going? Welcome on in, and thank you for the resubscribe for 15 months in a row. Hope you're doing well. Oh, you built 2 foam dart blasters today. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. Hey, Eagle the Dragon, welcome on in. Yeah, YouTube doesn't like my other blasters. A lot of streaming things don't like my other blasters. Is this a version of the Mercury Ender conversion thing? Looks wild. So this is a Ender 5 plus size build. I have my first ZeroG was an Ender 5 plus converted to the ZeroG Mercury 1, which is the Core XY gantry system. Then we went ahead and did the Hydra mod, which turned it into the triple lead screw. And I built a second one, the smaller size, the Ender 5 Pro size, using what has now become the Nebula frame system, which is get rid of the Creality frame altogether with its bows, twists, and stuff. And that one is built with Masumi rails. These are LDO rails. They are anodized in a gray. And yes, this allows for a fully enclosed printer. So that's what we'll be doing. Hey, it's Dutch Dude. Yes, you saw that first Mercury one. And 370, 370, 420 is the build volume, Projects in Dad's Garage. I'm glad you're hanging in there, Bexy Beans. I wish you were feeling a little bit better, dear. And yeah, a little bit of scope creep. So the plan was get the Nebula frame, lift and shift everything out of the old frame into the Nebula frame. Then Turtle Crawler let me know about his all-metal gantry and the ability to go to 9mm belts. So I was going to do the gantry with the 9mm belts. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to pull the other machine all apart just to get the linear rails. Why don't I just get a new set of linear rails? Because the old ones, the ones on the other frame are black and they stick out like an eyesore here. So I'm like, okay, so now it's an all new frame, all new linear rails, KB3D Z1 preload. We've got Kraken motors for the A and B drive from West 3D. And I've decided I'm going to run these at 48 volts. Right? What else? The previous one had a Manta M8P. I was thinking really hard about putting a Kraken in here because I have one. And the more I looked at it, it's way overkill for this. So what I decided to do instead is go back to a Manta M8P with a CB2 module. So the newer Victreetech Raspberry Pi module that supports a DSi display. So I will look into putting a display on this down the road. As we were building this, Turtle Crawler also sent me a note regarding the Z-axis mod, which is including metal plates for the motor mounts and SLM printed metal control horns, or not control horns, but bed yokes for the Z drive. So pretty much at this point, the only thing that moved over from the other chassis is the 3Z screws, the 3Z motors, and yeah, that's it. I'm going with a different hot end in here. We're going with an orbiter tool an Orbiter 2 with a smart filament sensor for the Orbiter 2, a LDO Orbitool O2 toolhead board, dual 5015 fans for part cooling, a single 4010 in the front for hot end cooling, and we're going to have a beacon probe on this. So we will be doing, this is a Rev H, so we will be doing beacon touch or contact, whichever it is, for Z homing, and then we'll be doing an eddy current bed mesh, so we'll be able to bed mesh this really, really fast. So yeah, that is the plan. And the other plan, bear with me folks. I do need to do one thing here. I have a hot end I can't talk about yet on there. So we're going to do a little cover-up job here for now. So like I said, the belts have been loosened up, meaning the idlers have been loosened out to their furthest extent without literally undoing the screws. I'm going to loosen all of the M5 bolts so I can kind of angle this around. I'll take out the M3, the smaller M3 by 8 and M3 by 12 screws, pull the M3 threaded insert out, and then I'll put 2 of the nylon inserts in as I put in the M3 by 55 millimeter screw, and we'll try and put one of the M3 screws right here in the back to help the 2 M5s in front keep it from lifting up. So that is the plan. Some of the other things I did off stream, and when we flip this over, I will show you, is I did some of the wiring. The mains wiring is done to the power supply units, and I'm going to have to replace a couple, like the front Z screws, because we flipped the power supplies to the front and the board to the back. We'll have to do a little bit of changing there. But speaking of power switches, I also had to order some of those because we're doing a quote-unquote remote switch. So the power inlet is at the bottom down here, and the power switch is now on the front right front face. We are using one of these switches, long and skinny, and the way this works is we're switching between these two. So on is up, so the line's coming in here, then coming back out of the middle and going back to the power supply. This one, this different colored one, would be used if you want to light up the front. I could care less, so I didn't plumb it. But I got the switch for that. What else? We got in some lights today as well. These are UV lights. So when we install this in the printer, since we're using the neon magenta ABS, this should light up really nicely in that UV lighting. So yeah. So where am I? Oh, I was going to start working on these. So we need our M3 driver so that we can remove some screws. And I shouldn't have to remove them all. I just need to make a pivot point. So I'll remove these two long ones. So yeah, Dutch dude I met at the first Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Festival, and from that point on, it was gung-ho to build ZeroG Mercuries, which you guys know me, it doesn't take much to get me excited about a printer build. This is an incredible build for Heathen. What are you doing with limit switches? So there's a limit switch right on this side of the tool head for the x-axis, and there's going to be a Y limit switch right here attached to the inside of the right rear rail. So we're homing to X max, Y max. And then, like I said, the Z men will be the beacon probe, and we're going to actually do beacon contact, which is bringing the nozzle down to the build plate and using the beacon probe as the, basically we're nozzle probing. All right, so there's one screw. I'm going to have to turn this a little bit more. Might be an issue because of my motor wires that I have running down through here already. See if I can get those out. There we go. And I have to take the aluminum spacer out here because it's a threaded spacer. And as such, it will cause us issues. It's not threaded all the way through. I did try. It's threaded about, 15 to 20 millimeters. Nope, they're basic limit switches. The switch that I showed is a actual power switch, not a limit switch. But we are using very basic limit switches for X and Y. And then, like I said, Z is the beacon probe, which sits underneath. What have I been printing lately? Well, sir, I've been printing a bunch of 3D printer parts. So today I took a Voron 2.4 350 and a Voron Zero down to Ecovate. They were I was basically completing a build for the owner and getting them squared away. So that is all done, and it is now heading back to the owner for him to do with as he or she wants to. And then the other thing I will show you here in a second. Let me try to get one of these down in there. That goes there. That's a 3. That's the 2. That one's going in. We'll get this one in. Oh yeah, that is a heck of a lot more rigid. That is a heck of a lot more rigid. All right. Let me get my electrical tape to cover that up for now. So don't hate. I'm using electrical tape just to hold the wires into the channel for right now. I've got some channel cover in gray downstairs. I just haven't gone and dug it out yet. It's in a box of extrusions and actually sitting in the extrusions that I got from Open Builds. So it's kind of a pain in the butt to get to at the moment. And then once we get this done and before I start putting the belts together or tightening the belts back up, we'll have to make sure that all of our belts are actually still lined up in the pulleys appropriately. The Dutch dude, do you have any ideas for some new shenanigan printers? Okay, we'll put those in that box. These are the, what do I do with these spacers? You do, but that's about it. Ideas? Gotcha. You were at one point working on doing a Goliath on a ZeroG, weren't you? If so, did you ever get that up and running and working well? And by Goliath, I'm referring to the Goliath toolhead from the VZBot lineup of printers. Might build a one-off small printer for yourself using your Carvera. There you go. Yeah, I don't have a Carvera. I do have a Milo mill and a rat rig mill that I need to get up and running. There's nothing wrong with them. I just have to, well, in the case of the Milo, just get the, basically get it finished wired now that I've got the Casa enclosure and work things like that. So what is going on? What are you catching on? Oh, here we go. So yeah. That one's there, too. Yeah, and it'll be nice because if I can get that up and running here soon, rather than going out to Send Cut Send for another set of top motor mounts, I can just make my own. And when I do that, then I can do a full swap out of the gantry and Z and everything on the smaller build as well. Because when I had the Z motor plates done, I got a second set of Z motor plates and a second set of the bed yokes. So it would be basically taking the panels off, breaking it down, and rebuilding it with the CNC parts, which shouldn't be that hard. Did you hear Mill? You did hear Mill. Want to do more with ball screws? Yeah, that's cool. Um, I would say, let me make sure that these are lined up after all of our shenanigans. Ooh, runaway M5 bolt. Never good. Oof. This one feels like the underlying T-nut has moved out of the way. We might have to figure that out, which is just taking the M3 by 18 screw off, which means I need to run downstairs real fast to grab the 2.5 inch or millimeter driver. So I will be right back. That one is actually in there. This one is not. I do not know which way it went, so loosen that real fast. Get this set in there. So I think we're there, and now I'm going to go through and make sure my belts are lined up again. Those look good. Those are looking good. Okay. So we should be able to tighten these up some. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give them a little tighten. And I'm going to pull my extruder all the way forward to the bump stop. And I'm going to see if there's play on one side or the other. There's a little squishy play on this side. So that's the side that I'm going to tighten down. Still a little bit. Still a little bit on this one side. I can live with that for now. We'll do a normal belt tensioning cycle, but right now I'm just trying to get a little bit of a preload on it and let it sit there for a little bit to make sure that we fix the problem in the back here fully before we do much there. Right now my extruder is just hanging out. I did get in some M3 by 12. Remember we needed 14 standoffs here. So I have a stack of washers that made up the extra gap. And I did that on both sides. So the stack of washers is on the side next to the extruder itself. And then there's our Orbitool tool board. So motor's obviously plugged in. We'll need to do all of our wires. Of course, our heater wires are going to be screwed down at the bottom here, so we're going to need to get those put in and then drop this down on there and get everything done up. Excuse me. So let's see, what do I want to do? I talked to you about the mains wiring. Let me flip this over and I'll show you the mains wiring that I've done. So that you all can see what I did. So once again, power outlet back here in the back. All of our wires come down, and I'm using the Trident twist in zip tie mounts. So all three of my wires come down. The blue and the yellow are ground, peel off, which is ground and neutral. The brown comes up, goes into the front switch, comes back out of the front switch, and over into a Wago block. I have a ground cable here. I'm just going to cut these zip ties, get that ground cable back down in there to cover it up. But before I do that, I'll run my the one load line that needs to come around here, and then remember the other one's going to go to the bed, while one of the bed ones is going to come back directly to neutral. So we'll have to do that wiring as well. This wiring that you see here is our X and Y motors that are coming down. I've already got those wired in. I need to put another one of my twist connectors here and lock down that wire, the motor wire, and the thermistor wire for the motor. And all we're trying to do is keep all of our wiring nice and tidy and running along the sides, and we'll come in through the opening in the drop DIN rail as we need to come into the electronics. Yeah, you just want to do something different than belts and pulleys. Is it Pantheon that was doing, I think, ball screws on everything? Thanks, Free Heathen. Yeah, there'll be a little bit more cleanup as we go through this, but we're making some progress. And we're making really, really good progress, especially when I find all of the clips that I printed, because I printed like an entire seriously, what'd I do with them? I printed like an entire plate of the clips. You know what? I think those are downstairs too. Well, dang it. This Z motor right here is going to get snipped and clipped. It's literally going straight into a motor mount or into a motor jack pretty much. So that one's going to be made very small. Like I said, I will grab different cables that will allow me to run down the length and around and then back into the motors here and here. Yeah, we'll get our, we'll start wiring up the what we need to bring a load wire around, and then we need to do the signal wiring. And we're making progress. Like I said, we've got a dual UHP setup here. So we've got UHP 350 24 volt and a UHP 350 48 volt. So that's critical there. The 48 volt is driving the high voltage input, where the 24 volts going into the regular board input that'll drive the 3Z motors. Hey, Timor, how's it going? How's it going, Pete? Thank you for the follow, Atomic Spark. Yeah, sorry for doing this over here instead of right on the bench. It's just, this thing's a beast and does not fit on this bench. I have it sitting actually in a dining room table downstairs. So just trying to move this thing around is fun. And we've done some of the build with me sitting on the floor right here doing it. And remember our back panel, it's kind of in two pieces. There's the standard deck panel, and then there's a little add-on that needs to be attached with some printed pieces, And this whole thing drops in like that and gets screwed down with like 14 different screws. And then immediately has all the carpet stuff whisked because it's staticky as all get out. But this covers up the bottom of our deck panel the bottom of our printer very nicely and keeps things from coming in from the underside. We'll put that on there once we get all of the wiring done. We'll need that clip, but I think we're going to wait for a minute to run down and get that. I may still do that off screen. We're going to work on getting some of these wires terminated for the thermistors and get those plugged in, and then just kind of continue working on some wires. I'm going to leave the Z lead screws or the Z motors for later. Sorry about that. And for now, let me Go ahead and put this back over. And we're going to be working on our tool head over here. We're going to need to terminate all of our wires. I'm going to see about moving some of these screws, moving stuff out of the way, and so I can sit down on the bench as we start working our wiring here. These were M3/8s and 12s. We're collecting a whole slew of new fasteners as we go through this build as well. We may need some of the fasteners out of here. And I'm going to see if we can't bring this around and make it a little bit closer for you all as we start working on this. See if we can't get you close-up view. At some point, I'll have to work on getting a couple of these projects done because we've got this beast of a project. We've got the roof right behind me now that needs to be done. So we've got quite a few things that need to be worked on. Move the coffee too far away. And the other thing I'm going to need up is my applications. Well, apparently my computer decided it needed to do a reboot last night and rebooted a whole bunch of stuff out from underneath me. So bear with me for a moment while I find the wiring diagram, or at least the pinout. Make this bigger so I can see it. And then we will bring it up over here in this view. There we go. So we've got the wiring up here. Now, the biggest thing I'm going to need to look at is I know that this stuff is coming from the tool head. So the thick white stripe wires are the hot end heater. The thinner black wires are to the PT1000. And then this is the fan with a speed controller because it's a Honey Badger 4010 fan. So we're going to start with our heater because if you remember right, when we look at our Orbitor, the heater comes in from the bottom. And I need to make sure when this sits down on there, am I going to have good clearance? Clearance.
Could you try again?
No, I can't, Siri. Go away and leave me alone.
Okay.
Can't believe she responded. Yeah, that's going to be a tight fit, and we're going to definitely have to have those in there before we do any other wiring. So we're going to bring this back here. I'm going to try and keep it as tight as possible without making it too tight. So we're going to cut it to that level. Pop this back off. We'll need to go ahead and get these prepped for ferrules. And what I'm going to do is drop some things and put things right in the way. Yeah, get some heat shrink tubing and put heat shrink on that and have it ready to go before I cut the wire or the insulation back. Because I'm going to need most likely thinner wire exposed. Your clips are in a filament box. Best camouflage for a 3D printing workshop. Yep. I wish that was true. I know where the clips are. I'm pretty sure I printed them on the one Centauri carbon that's downstairs. So when we've got this really, really thick fiberglass insulation, it sometimes is wise to strip a decent amount back and then use some thinner heat shrink and just kind of layer heat shrink up. And that gives you a thinner wire to be working with going into the back of this. So that's what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take maybe 15 millimeters and pull off the insulation. Like I said, all I'm doing here is just trying to make the overall wire a thinner profile. When we go to run it in, run it up and underneath and around. Don't worry, we are going to put a ferrule on it. Might even be too long. Cut that in half. We are going to put a ferrule on the end, but it's going to be a smaller ferrule. And then we'll trim that down as well like we normally do so that it goes in the actual screw down connector a little bit easier. There, we've got the one thinner one. We'll take the larger one over the top of it as well. And then we'll hit that with the heat gun and shrink that down. And once again, this is going to give us a thinner overall like wire thickness when we go to route this around and just make our life a little bit easier. All right, darn you. Fine, go there. Burn myself on you later. I need the ferrule kit, which is over there. And I will put these out of the way so I don't knock these over. And one of the last things I'm going to do is install that build plate because one, it's like 8 or 10 pounds. And once you add it on there, it's, you know, it just becomes even more heavy and lopsided to move around. So do yourself a favor and be kind to yourself. Now this is an 18 gauge wire, which means we're going to use these little red ferrules here. And also do yourself a favor and close these back up. I have had to play the, 500 ferrule pickup game before. Not recommended. It kind of sucks. What was that about? And as with any wire connection, give it a gentle tug just to make sure that it's a good connection and good crimp, which it is. So we'll put this away because I don't think I'll need any of these for a little bit until we get to the underdeck wiring. And we will need our screwdriver, and the question is this too big still? That is a decided yes. So we'll grab the good old iFixit. And a smaller flathead. And remember when we install these that there's no polarity. And I'm going to try and get this in, and haha. Red ferrules are too big. So we get to try and do a downsize. Hey Jedi Spidey, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. So this is 18 gauge wire, and so the red ferrule should be the one used, but the ferrules themselves wind up being too big to go in these tiny connectors. So we're going to try and snip off those red ferrules and put on a different size ferrule. And I'm really holding on to this wire as I'm trying to pull this off so I don't stretch the wires out, but I'm still able to get this off. I don't want to cut these shorter than I have to. And you should be able to go down one size. It's just going to be a tough fit, but doing that screwing motion will help get it down on there. I don't really want to go down more than one size because that means I would literally need to downsize the wire on that heater. I mean, we have done it in the past, but I'm not 100% sure if this is a 80 watt heater, a 60 watt heater, or a 40 watt heater that was installed in this. So I prefer to keep as much wire gauge available to me for this install. All right, that is going to go in, but what I'm going to need to do is, like we've done before, is remove the last segment on the ferrule, because these will be too long. And just removing that one segment will allow you to get the ferrule all the way in there for a good connection without having any other issues. And you don't have a lot of exposed metal at the bottom of the ferrule that could lead to like an arcing situation. Okay. Here we go. Tighten that one down. Make your way upstairs and see what's going on in the Twitch first. Awesome. Yeah, we are working on wiring here for the tool head on our printer. We had to fix a little something. So our motor mounts, I had the belts tension and it was pulling the motor mounts up and starting to bend the base plates of the motor mounts. And what it was is I had just put them in with M5x12s at the front of the motor mounts. And what I really needed to do, and you can't see it with this angle, is put in 55 millimeter long M5 screws with spacers and compress it down from the top, which makes the whole top end rigid and gives it a harder time for the belts to pull everything forward. So we got that done. Now we're going to come over here and work on getting our orbiter installed and in place. Yeah, that's going to work out nicely. So that is the hot end installed. And we'll have to go through and see where the rest of our wires are going to go. So we have a hot end fan, which is a 3-pin fan. We jump over here. So this is tool fan, which is the center horizontal 2-pin connector. That tool fan is if you put a fan blowing on the back side here. So if you have a shroud on here and you're blowing air into it, that's for a tool board fan. The 3-pin fan here is the actual hot end fan, which I do have 3 wires. So the way this works is the top one is the speed. That is the power wire, so the red wire. 2 is the ground, and then 3 is the tachometer. So 3 would be the yellow wire. So that's how we will wire this up. In this case, most of the time we're switching ground, but on this particular 3-pin setup, we're switching power based on the tacho reading. So because we've already got our 3 wires here, what I need to do is depin these, put them in a 3-pin JST, and we can loop those around and plug it in. And our wire is fairly well contained. So we're just going to kind of put it down, bring it around, and if we need to, we'll zip tie all of our wires together there. So let me grab a finger poker, 9000, aka a pair of tweezers that I will normally poke myself with and cause myself to bleed numerous times. To press that pin down or the latch on the pin, take that connector off. Pull that little locking latch back up a little. There we go. And we'll take the other 2 out. Now the nice thing on this board is there's nothing we have to do other than just call out a PT1000 when we plug in the thermistor. And that threw me for a loop on the Nighthawk 36, or excuse me, Nighthawk Stealth Burner board that I installed on a 2.4 recently for one of my clients. And I was looking for, okay, there's no setting, and I wasn't sure what thermistor they had in there because it was more of a slight upgrade retrofit to someone else's build. Partly because I was replacing their, it was an older 2.4 kit that still came with the afterburner toolhead. And I decided to print the parts and upgrade them to a stealth burner. Well, let me rephrase that. I didn't. They had a fully assembled stealth burner there. So I took that and went to retrofit it, and they had a toolhead board on it. Very, very simple PCB, no lighting or anything like that. But it had like the 20-pin microfit connector. And the wire harness was the individual connectors, old school. And I was not going to repin all those microfits into a single connector. And so the easiest option for me was to grab a stealth burner Nighthawk stealth burner board, slap it in, make it go USB through the cable chain, and that was done. So yeah, I am very, very, very much a toolhead board person. I think they were one of the greatest inventions. Let's see, we need a 3-pin. The way that connector goes in that way, so the yellow's going to be, or excuse me, the red is the topmost pin. Followed by the ground. And then finally, the yellow or taco. Bring this down and loop it around. Get that plugged in. We're not going to have a tool head or a tool board fan. We are going to have our tachometer, or not tachometer, our thermistor wires here. Those are going to come around, and we're going to have to cut these a little bit shorter. Our thermistor, we're also going to need to add our part fan. We're going to have to combine our part fans to get them there. Our hot temp is this connector right here. Right below the heat sink on the right is our hot end temperature fan, or hot end temperature, our hot end thermistor. God, why is English so difficult today? I'm going to figure out the length, pull this back out, cut this. And once again, this is going to be a 2-pin PT1000, which means there's no polarity on this. So we're just going to put it, whichever order we want when we do our pins. Luckily, I've got a 2-pin connector there if I wanted to use that, or I'll use the black one of the two. And they even provide me some pins. Look at that. Thanks for the lurk, Pezliz. Thank you for the lurk. So, Spidey, are you coming down to Ecovate on Saturday? So, for those of you in the Raleigh area, there is a buy-sell trade event at Ecovate on this coming Saturday, the 2nd of August. I will have a couple printers there. I know last time I heard, Jedi Spidey was bringing a couple of printers as well. But I will have a couple of printers there. I'm thinking I'm going to bring my Bugaboo, Blue Dragon, which is my other ender wire, and we'll see what else makes it in the car. We know certain things won't go. Black Box won't go. The Rat Rig won't go. Iron Dragon won't go. Bay Dragon can't go because I'm waiting on the Stealth Changer kit. So we'll have a couple of printers there. And we have a few new additions to the Dragon Den as well. you may notice some changes to the line behind me. Namely, the push.
Could you try again?
I really wish she would stop trying to listen to me. Let me just get her out of my pocket. Ooh, meeting canceled? Yes. Oh, wait, that's for September. Thought I had a meeting canceled for tomorrow. I was going to be happy. You'll be there with 3 printers in tow. Nice. So the Ender XY is there. I offered it up to the interns, and they never did anything with it. So if it's still there on Saturday and they haven't quote unquote claimed it, that one will be up for sale. Like I said, the Bugaboo will be up for sale, and Blue Dragon will be up for sale. Okay, so that's our thermistor. Right below the thermistor is our XN stop, which is this wire here. So we'll bring this around, figure out a distance, and we'll chop those. And I honestly do not know which wire is which, but as we all know, it's end stop. It's if it doesn't work one way, we just put a bang in front of it and it'll work. We're going to save this wire. This is some, it's a decent amount of wire. We can use that for toolhead wiring somewhere else. All right. 1 and 2. Now this might be a little fun to get done. Just because of the space that I have to work in. One down, 1 to go. Now I am trying to keep these wires a little bit shorter than normal because looking at my last build, like there's a part of me that wants to go in and shorten every single wire on that tool head, which I know is an impractical thing, but I'm going to do my best to keep these nice and tight and looking pretty and not have the tool head look like it grew hair. And yes, I know that's an oxymoron. I just saw one of my future posts, you'll see the top of my head in the thumbnail as I'm digging into a printer, or into this printer actually. So I know it's kind of funny for me to be making comments about things with hair when I apparently have lost that ability. All right. Exit stop is ready to go in. Do I need to do anything else? We're not doing RGB. There's no ergaba on this tool head. So exit stop goes there. The thermistor comes around and goes right on top of exit stop. There we go. Got our part fan, our hot end fan. We'll need our part cooling fans. Once again, we've got two here. Oh, was that what I was? The heck did I do there? Okay, there we go. We've got two part cooling fans. They need to be joined together and go into one connector up here at the top. Just seeing what else we have here. I hate splicing fan wires like this. I'd really love to put like a 2-into, like the 2-into-1 board, or yeah, the 2-into-1 parallel boards. I'd really love to be able to use one of these just to make swapping fans easier. But like, how would I go about mounting that in such a way where it makes, where it looks like it belongs? Because I can't really put anything along the back there because that may interfere with something else, namely our eddy probe, or not eddy probe, but you know what I mean. And I don't want it to come all the way back, catch, and break. So I'd really want it to have at least the buffer of the fan, if it hits anything, will keep it from getting mashed up. I guess the best way to do it is just to join my wires together into one connector and go up, Bite the bullet, and if you ever have to replace the connector, replace the connector. We can go about like right there, cut the wires, join the wires, the two reds, the two blacks. Just take one of these, extend it, and then we'll cut it to length and put the connector back on. Or I guess we could kind of move it right to the middle, huh? So once again, I'm going to twist the two reds and the two blacks together from the fan, and then I'll take one of these and we'll bring the wires out and we'll solder joint it together like we've done in the past. using our small thin solder joints, heat shrink solder joints. Put that there, that there, that there, and where are my thin solder joints? I'm glad you're going to have your 3 printers there, Spidey, because you're really worried about not having some nice printers, and I know that your printers that you're bringing are in good condition. Huh. Well, that's awesome. Nothing like combining connector types in the wrong bags. Okay. Let me go grab a couple of those. They're over here. And put these back some. Like I said, we'll do the 2 blacks together, the 2 reds together, and then we'll twist them together on one end, add the other side in, and away we go. When you use these solder connectors, go ahead and give yourself a little bit more leeway on your wires. I mean, don't do like 2 inches, but give yourself some leeway so that you can get them down in the connectors or twist it if you need to twist them. We almost have our tool head done. So that'll be the tool head. We'll work on the bottom some. And once again, we're going to take the black wires, twist them together. Red wires twisted together. Might be easier said than done. I have to do this one at a time. Hopefully I didn't make this too small for my own good. Done. All offers will be considered. There you go. Yeah, there you go. We'll let that cool for a little bit, and then we'll get the other side prepped. Yeah, that's one thing I tend to forget is pulling the print statistics and stuff off of my printers when I get rid of them or send them to new homes. Kind of like an afterthought at the time of, oh, I should probably do this or do that. I'm normally sitting there at shows at the last minute trying to clear all of my private, Wi-Fi data and stuff, and I'll say render them back to factory default, or at least clear my Wi-Fi. And the password that I put on, like the big thing is taking it back to like Pi Raspberry. Oh, dang it. That was good. Felt like, oh, you went a little bit too far, pull it back, and then I pulled the whole thing out. Okay, and like I said, I'm going to let that sit for a little bit because looking at the connector, the red, whoop, no, red should be at the top, black at the bottom. I thought I was going to have to depin and repin this, but they're pinned correctly. Now, the question will be, do I depin it and put it in the black one, which I think I will. I don't want just one that's different. tuck these wires up and around. Okay, now I still need to put screws in the tool head itself, but give me a second here. I will bring you all down here and get you a look at our wiring job. Which way am I going that way? So, let's do that and do that. So here is our wiring job. Again, we've got our hot end fan, our 3-wire for the hot end fan, part cooling hot end, motor over here. Then underneath, we've got the thermistor, the X end stop, and all the way up underneath there is our heater wire. So there we go. There is our completed tool head. We're going to install the XT30 2+2 connector, bring it up, we'll loop it down and come back up through the umbilical here. We'll pick up the beacon wire and that will give us the full tool head wiring. That becomes the umbilical that'll come back around to the back. So we're basically going to have what's going to amount to dual USB cables coming back to basically doing a loop from here, going up, coming back down, up through our cable guide, do the big loop, come right down here and go right down the back side of our center. Let me do this. We'll go right down the back side of our center down into the deck panel. So 2 wires and our entire tool head is done. I still need to put the screws in that. And then we'll finish tensioning the belts and stuff as well. You don't think you had Wi-Fi set up on the K1s? I mean, I run mine on Wi-Fi. I know some people don't. That's, you know, to me it's more of a convenience thing and it seems to work well. If I had hardwire Ethernet option for them, I could do that. Okay, let me go put a few things away. Oh, wait. Let's leave the wiring stuff out because we still may need to do wiring because we're going to have to do the under the deck panel wiring still. Okay. Motor mount. What does it take for our motor mount? What screws do we put in for that? That's beacon. Extruder mounts. Orbiter 2. 310 and 312 assembly guide. drive module. I think it's the M312 socket head cap screws. Because this goes through the base mount, through the top plate, and into screws. So I'm pretty sure it's the M3x12. There's one. That is definitely not going. So reader mounts. So what I'm trying to do here is LDO Orbiter 2, M3x8 for each. That would have been to put the actual mount down. Okay, those bolts look like the back. Oh, maybe they're M3x8. Three 12s, two 10s, four 8s. I can tell you the 12s, at least on the one side, were way too long. Plenty. Eights are perfectly fine. So the extruder is now on. The entire tool head is now installed. We've got some basic tension going on our belts. Let me see what else we can do tonight with our printer. We can do some tensioning. phone. So what I've got is between the idler at the front, between the idler center pin and the center pin for the idler at the gantry. Let me, there we go. So between the idler pin for the front idler and the idler pin on the gantry, I'm just checking, and we want to be about 150 millimeters between centers. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to open up our Sound Spectrum app. And this is my Sound Spectrum app. I'm just going to set this over here and strum the belt. And I'm about 110 hertz on that side. And pretty close to matching on both sides. Now, 9mm belts can go a lot higher tension. That's why we wanted to go through and make sure that we were fully locked down with at least 3 positions here. And what we're going to do is I'm going to take my 2.5 and I'm going to start trying to count how much I clock each side. 1, 2 turns. I'm going to come over here and do the same thing. One, 2 turns. Now I'm going to go ahead and check the measurements again. So I'm closer to 180 on this side, and this side is a little low. So I'm just going to give a partial turn right here, and we'll give it a shot again. And every once in a while with this app, do yourself a favor, close it completely out, open it back up, and give yourself a new reading set. Okay. So this side is still reading higher than this side. And also, the thing that I did forget to do, move your tool head around. And that's going to work those belts. And definitely as you start applying the tension, make sure that your belts are riding appropriately and not riding up on an edge. If you start riding up on an edge, you will have issues. And it will show up in your input shaping graphs. Oof. Once again, we'll find our 150 measurement. You want to make sure your tool head is roughly in the center. That left side is still a little higher ringing than this one. So what we're going to do, back that one off a half turn. And I'm going to raise this one a turn. Or I'm sorry, not a turn, but a half turn. We'll check these again. They are pretty darn close. They are pretty darn close. Look here, it looks like we are one tooth shorter on the top belt, which is this side. So, hey, Big Jano, how's it going? So, we spent some time. Our tool head is now complete except for the actual umbilical wiring. We've wired the entire tool head up. I do have blue painter's tape down here because I have a hot end that I cannot show off. After the last stream, I wired up the switch that comes all the way to the front. This is our mains power switch. The inlet is on the back right, back down here. So that wire runs all the way up here, the switch. The neutral and ground pop right in here. Then from the switch, it comes back up here. I've got my two power supplies wired in for mains voltage. So the next thing to do is, I guess, start wiring up things to the board itself. And there's really no other way for me to do it than for me to sit down here on the floor and do wiring. Right? That's the part. Secret hot end. Yes, a hot end that I cannot disclose. Yeah. So the other thing I'm going to want to do and have to remember is I want to label these two power supplies. God, I just moved that completely out of the way. There we go. I want to label these two power supplies because one's 24 volt and one's 48 volt. So we will need to label those. For now, we'll grab some blue painter's tape and we'll put blue painter's tape on the 48 volt side. And the front one's 24, so it's 24 then 48. So I'm just going to put this right here as a signature to signify that this is my 48 volt. The 48 volt gets connected to the high voltage end for the motors back here. The 24 volt is going to come into the board, and there will be a connection that will come over and go to the board for the umbilical, for the tool head. We've got our Wagos over here to keep our wiring nice and clean. I think that looks pretty darn good. Remember that the deck panel here is going to be clear, so all the electronics are going to be exposed, right? Now we've got, this is the wire for the center Z motor. You'll see that we have a black wire here and a black wire here. These are for thermistors in our Kraken motors. They're PT1000. We're going to bring them right into the thermistor headers here. So we just need to terminate these and go ahead and plug them in. The left one, I believe, is it slightly longer? Might be a little bit slightly longer, and we'll put that in the front. The other ones will go in the rear. If I need to, I will make those a little bit easier to work with. And by easier to work with, I mean I will take them out of the cable ties in the back so that they, am I undoing that? Or, oh yeah, I am undoing it. There we go. And once again, these are PT1000 thermistors for the actual Z motors. So I think what I'm going to do is turn this around. I need to get my wire crimp snips and some connectors. We're going to go ahead and just keep using the ones that we had here from the LDO kit. We've got a few extras that we didn't need. That's what I was looking for. So I'm going to sit down here. I'm going to crimp up these two connectors. These are thermistors going into 2-wire connectors. So 2 wires into 2-wire connectors. Pretty easy, straightforward. Our Z motors, we are going to have to wind up rewiring these from scratch just because they're not going to be long enough in some cases, and they'll be way, way too long in case of the center one. So it's just going to be easy enough to just rewire them with appropriate size connectors. The wires on these thermistors are a little long, and either they tend them or they're solid core wire, one of the two. We need some JST pins and some JST connectors, and I think we're going to use white ones here because I only have one more black one. Got some great views lately. Hey, here's a picture of me sitting on the ground as I'm doing wiring on a printer. Once again, these are thermistor wires, so there's no polarity. So we'll just go ahead, as soon as we crimp this, we'll put it in the connector. One down. I don't know, Chad. It's almost like I've done some wiring before, and you know, these crimps are just going pretty super well tonight. And I say that, and now I'm going to like jack up a couple of crimps. And okay, that's in there. So this is coming from the right side, so I want this one to go into TB3. It's kind of tight. I might have to scoot this back just ever so slightly to make it a little bit nicer for these connections. Because literally, I mean, both thermistors coming from both of these motors should be, you know, all the wires are the same length, going basically the same exact distance. So shouldn't have too many issues. If I need to just pull this back slightly to give me a little bit more elbow room on them. And as I mentioned before, one of the reasons why I'm sitting down on the floor and doing this is simply because this printer does not fit on my workbench, and I don't have another alternative really for where to put it while we work on it except on the floor. At some point I am hoping to make some appropriate space so that we have kind of like a shorter table set up in here to do printer builds on. Doesn't have to be full Monty big, but something that we can do printer builds on. And don't forget, folks, after we get this one built, and as we're waiting for the Rift designer to give us the next installment of files for the secondary controller, we will be working on oh, darn it. We will work on sometimes words on stream are extremely hard. We'll work on Zura's whatchamacallit, Micron build. Okay, so now we've got the left side and right side motors installed. We've got our thermistors for both said motors installed. We're going to need to make a very, very short pigtail for one of these, and then we're going to need to grab some new cables because I want to route these all the way around and come in from the back. So this one's literally going to go right here in the middle, and then that one is the first one. That one's going to be the one on this side, and then those three Z motors are done. I will most likely do that wiring off stream. It just makes the perfect sense there. The bed trigger wiring, if we go from the bed out port, we have to put power in the bed in port. If we come from one of the tool heads, then we can come directly out of here over to the load wires with a wire that we just kind of bring down under the board, pop it up, and that way we can keep our wiring clean and not have to add any additional wires. We'll have a 48 volt to the high voltage, a 24 volt to the power end, and then a 24 volt most likely mounted right here for the LDO Orbitool toolboard adapter. And what that's going to do is where's it at? We have to plug in USB cable to this side. We'll put 24 volts into this microfit connector, and then this 6-pin connector goes up to the tool headboard. So I just need to figure out the best place to install this. Probably what I need to do is the easiest way to figure out where to install that. The wire that goes up to the tool board, that's the easy one. They do have pre-made wire for the power wire as well, so we don't have to worry about that. What we do need to worry about is the supplied USB cable and what's the length of this, because this will dictate where we can mount the little adapter board there and still provide our power. So remember, on our Manta board, our power's coming in on one side and our USB is over here. This will be signal and load for the bed, right? So our bed wires are going to come through a cable chain mounted right here, up, down, and in. And one wire will go here, and then the other wire and the neutral comes over here to our main stack. So with this plugged in, we now know how far we can go with our little board here to mount it. And as much as I would love to bring that over, that is that is too sharp of an angle right there. So maybe we go and look and see if I've got a different USB-A to USB-C board or cable that I can run, because I'd like to extend it either over here or, like I said, down through there. So I'd have to see what I've got for USB-A to USB-C over on the wall to make that happen. Yeah, what time is it? It is 8 o'clock. We've been streaming for 2 hours. We've also got the pre-made wire cable, which I love, LDO. So this is the OBT power, and this is the 24 volt side, pre-terminated. So all we have to do is plug it in and keyed so that it only goes in one way. It goes in and locks. And there's your keyed in 24 volt. So this gives us the ability to move this around. I guess that might be something we look at, is where does this allow us to get the board to? Yep, I'm still going to need a longer USB-C A to C cable. Because I think what I'm going to do is similar to what we've been doing with most of our boards to kind of get, or most of our cables, is I'm trying to route the cables underneath the 2040 side panels. So if I bring these connectors through the middle over here, now I can bring these over, connect them. I can mount this board somewhere like that. I'll still need to get my USB cable to go over there. And then we'll bring over our cable for the tool head. So yeah, I think that is doable. I'm going to lay this over on its back so that I can get to my 24 volt power connectors a little bit easier. And what am I looking for? Hey, bearded printer, welcome on in. This is another, watch Digital Dragon sit down on the ground, climb all over the printer, do wiring type of stream. What I'm going to do is, oh, I thought that was going to be the right angle. It is not. Well, sort of. We're going to grab the right bit, and we're going to install. This is the 24 volt supplied power lead from LDO. And I'm just going to undo my screw terminals here and get this screwed down on there. So negative, black wire. Positive, red wire. Okay, and this is going to route through this drop rail. We'll put in some cable tie down here, and then that'll allow us to bring this up and mount it right here. I'll pull this excess through so it's not fully visible. And we'll have that latched in down there, kind of something like that. And while I'm here, let me go ahead and get my 24 volt power that's going to come to our board, and we'll kind of route it the same exact way. We're going to use our 18 gauge wire. And we've used the blue, the brown, and the white, or excuse me, not the white, the yellow. So we're going to grab the black and red for these connections. And we're going to need our fork terminals. Let me grab those and the crimpers for those. And we'll need snips and some wire snippers. Yes, this is always the fun streams. When you've got a printer that's too big for the workbench and you really don't have another viable way of working on it other than just, let's get on the floor and climb around. This is true maker stuff right here. I mean, it's not like I don't have access to a place where I can where everybody knows your name. I could literally take this printer down to Ecovate and work on it there, but there's no need to do that. We can work on it here. You guys are cool seeing me climb around on the ground and working on a printer because this is a natural environment. Uh-oh. Now I can't read what's saying. Is that Noah? What's up, Waters? Ecovate 3D inferred. Yep. And yeah. I said Ecovate and boom, there's Waters. Yep. So, I could bring us down on the big table and take over the big table. Maybe I'll see if Mrs. Dragon is willing. We will bring the Rift down this weekend. No! Well, now we're going to pick up connectors and sort connectors on stream. Sorry, folks. Could be somewhat fast. So, yeah, maybe I'll bring the Rift down this weekend and just show it off at the buy-sell trade. Definitely a interesting concept. And I say get Mrs. Dragon's permission because there's only so many printers I can put in the truck. So I'll have to go in her car. All right. Now let's try not to dump a batch of connectors again. Or at least not on today's stream. Remember to give a tug. And what do I do with the screwdriver? Did you guys let me take the screwdriver away? There we go. So this is my black cable, which would be the negative. We'll loosen that and put that in, tighten down. Once again, we're using 18 gauge cable. And I don't want to sell myself short, but I also don't want a huge amount of excess. Were you still down at the store? Waters, or had you gone home yet? Okay. All right, that one's done, and power is on the lower side. And funny enough, I'm missing 2 screws off of this board. Don't know where they went, but we'll, since we're not going to use the bed in or the bed out, I'm just going to steal a screw. And once again, negative on that side. Give that a tug. And like I mentioned before, these wires are going to get tied down using some, well, it's the Trident roll-in, whatchamacallit, tie downs. And I use those a lot. I really like them. They work very well, especially when you're doing what we're doing here and just trying to tie down some wires to keep them out of the way. And they're good enough that they can be seen, but if they're tucked away where they're not going to be seen, even better. I know I say that, and I am probably now banned from the Trident Voron Discord, but it's all good. Where did I put the screwdriver again? There we go. We'll run the positive wire now. And this will get us all of our 24 volt power runs done. We'll need to run 48 volt, which will be pretty much the same distance, because we're going to be providing 24 volt into, or excuse me, 48 volt in for the A and B motors. Yeah, those are nice and solid. And like I said, we're going to need to run 2 more lines down for the motor power. And basically what I'm going to do is just mimic the path here and do a little bit of guesstimating. Not really. I'm going to go just like that as if I'm putting it in the same spot. Because I basically am, it's just going on this side versus that side. I could probably flip this back up and do that from that direction. Just easier to route the wires behind right now. So I'm going to basically hold this in place with a little bit of slack. Come forward. There we go. This is power, or positive, which is the second connector in. And we'll do one more for 48 volt negative. We'll just follow our little golden path here. So who all is starting to get excited for 3D Printopia? I know it's not too far off, but it's still a little ways off. I know I'm starting to look forward to the trip. I need to get the hotel rooms booked. And remember that this is going to be the last year for the Aberdeen Diner. How many days away? I do not know. I normally wait for Pez Liz to give me the countdown because she's the purveyor of anxiety is what I'm going to start calling her. She starts the countdown and my anxiety starts going through the roof thinking about all the projects I haven't got completed yet. Okay, so all of those are run. We've got our positive and our negative to go to the 48 volt side. We've got our 24 volt for our connector here. And by the connector here, I mean it's the 24 volt for the USB board. And we do have, whatchamacallit. We do have screw downs. This is actually made to kind of screw down something like that. And I just don't have a good place to mount this because it would get in the way of the deck panel if I mounted it like that. And there's not a spot down here to mount it. Yeah, I could, I guess, mount it to something like that, but I'm just going to mount it here with a couple of small strips of VHB tape and hope that that's good enough to hold it in place. We'll put a zip tie on all of these wires just to keep them nice and tidy. I think that works well. And I know as I'm saying this, you guys cannot see what I'm talking about. A body should not creak and crack that much getting up off the floor. So I will need to put my little zip tie thingies in there and zip tie that up. I think I am done with those for now. I think I am done with, or not done with these, but for now we'll put that there. Yeah, let's stand her on end. Put wire away. So we're using 18 gauge silicone wire. Flip this upside down. This will give me the ability to go through and put in my wire ties and get that ready to go to keep my wires nice and out of the way. We'll need to connect in our 48 volt lines right here. Let's do that while we've got access. And we are negative at the top, positive at the bottom. Oofda. You guys cannot see what I'm doing, huh? Negative on that side. Raise you guys up just a little bit. Advertising time. Uh-oh. All right, let me pop around here so I can see what was being said in chat. Yeet all the connectors. Yep, we sure did yeet all of the connectors. That, I wish I could say that that was the first time. It is not. doing it with JSTs is even more fun. Yeah, you need to make it down to one of the maker hangouts? Definitely, Jano. We would love to have you down to one of the maker meetups. We had Thunder Keys down there not too long ago. That was pretty cool. Okay, so we've got 24 and 48 volts going to the board. We've got 24 volts going to the board, 24 volts going to our adapter board, and 48 volt coming out there. We need to clean up our little mess here before I knock that over as well. That'll be fun to clean up out of the carpet. I think we're done with screw down terminals for now. So we'll put that away. Okay. What else do we have going on? We're going to need to create the Z cables, and I just put connectors away, and we're going to have to do screw downs for the load and the other connectors for the load. Sorry, I say load, but the SSR trigger we'll need to do. Let me go find my little screw down wire ties, because I know I have some. I printed a whole bunch of them. They're down here. And you all may see some new lineup of printers under here. So we've got 3 of the 4 Centauri carbons. That's still the Tivo Tarantula right there. So that's going to get pulled out, and the original Centauri carbon is going to go there. So 2, 3, and 4 are there. Setting up to do some production printing for a customer. And once again, these are just the twist in. They twist in kind of like a T-nut. And what I'm going to do is put them in this rail right along the edge here. I'm going to do them just in a couple of what seems like random places, because remember, I plan on bringing my Z wires down. Actually, I'm going to run them all the way around, and the Z's are going to come out that way. So I'm going to put a couple of these in place here to capture these wires. And all we're going to try and do is just keep our wiring as neat and tidy as possible. And these are going to allow us to run our wires straight down around the edge and only have basically like the minimal number of penetrations coming out to keep everything nice and pretty looking. And I know I'm going to run the new Z motor wires in here, and I'll probably cut a couple of these out. That's no big deal. But for now, I just want to try and keep things nice and neat as I'm going. It's not like I don't have 50,000 wire ties on hand. Goes there. I'll put one around this batch up here. And the part that I really like about this is these wires are, I mean, they're pretty darn tidy this way. Everything stays out of the way. You're not going to see a bunch of the wire, which will make the underdeck wiring look really, really nice since it's going to have a clear panel on the top. I mean, not as good as some of the professional, I'll say, people that wire things up for PCs and stuff. The cleanest looking build that I have ever seen was a E3D tool changer with a full duet board setup, and it had all white wiring that was pristine. Pristine. And that's good for now. I'll bundle these up once I figure out how to secure this down. Probably with just 2 little strips of VHB tape to the den rail. And then I can put a wire tie right there and kind of keep that nice and clean as much as I can. Yeah, that'll work. What next? What next? I feel like I should really work on the Z wiring, but it's almost 9 o'clock and I really don't want to start working on that. This is going to look nice. I won't work on Z wiring, but I will flip this over and we'll work on the load wiring some. I say the load wiring. The heated bed trigger wiring. That's what we're going to work on. I'll need to kind of tie in my ground for the SSR here. I'll tie that in to these zip down points as well. We'll do that real fast actually. We'll snip that one and snip the other one. I put one of these in a very, very, very poor place. when you're working on zip tying these wires down, you want them pretty snug, but be careful not to pinch the wires, because you could have some issues with your actual cables getting pinched and the signal and stuff going bad on you. The signal, the power, what have you. And because I know the little birdies, there is something new and unique down at Ecovate that I can hopefully get to play with. I can't, once again, I won't be able to show anything on it, but I might get to play with something new and unique soon. Okay, so that's tied in. I'll figure out a way of bringing this down and around just to keep it out, you know, like I said, nice but out of the way. That's done, that's done. There is a power wire that comes from here that goes to the load side. The other side is coming from the bed itself, and then the neutral from the bed's going all the way back to the neutral block over here. So we're getting there. I mean, really, it's the Z motors, and then we're running umbilicals. So we're getting really, really close to being ready to see if we can make this move. Once again, we're going to run the positive and negative trigger wires over to one of the heater outputs, like HE0 or something. Doesn't really matter which one we do. Yeah. We're almost golden, folks. We are almost golden on wiring. But we're getting close to 9 o'clock, and I'm going to call it quits. And I'm going to go hang out with Mrs. Dragon some. And yeah, just get some dragon time. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup as we close out the night here. You know, try and set the good example for a couple of people that are in here that I keep talking to about making sure the workplace is cleaned up when you're done, so that you can find things on the next stream, which I know I have an issue with. If you saw the rest of this, you would kind of chuckle with me making that statement, but I have been given semi-ultimatum to get my stuff cleaned up by Mrs. Dragon, so I'm working on that. Really, she wants the living room and dining room back. Hey, Evil Diesel, how's it going? Am I quitting early? Yeah, I'm not quitting early per se, but yeah, I am going to call it a night. I wonder, is this? No, that's not going to be long enough. Ooh, it is. It is. So, 24 gauge wire is perfectly suitable for doing the signal runs between our hot end port and our SSR. So, as long as that shorter one is long enough, which it is, Yeah, maybe we'll go ahead and we'll make up these cables while we're sitting here talking, getting ready for closeout. Come back over to the bench side here. Actually line you up on the bench. One of these will need to be a ferrule connection, and then the other side will be our fork connector. Now the big question here is whether or not we've got enough wire here to actually engage. You know what? The more I think about that, we probably still want to go with something a little heavier. Yeah, we'll make it work. We'll make it work. Tweaking the extruder on the Centauri carbon. Okay. Did Miss Dragon sneak in here? And you guys are trying to figure out when you're going to fly out, Eagle? Yeah, I know. What am I looking for? I don't know. I was looking for something. I have no idea what that something was. Okay, this is my shorter wire. I'm going to do my best to not play connector pickup again, because that was fun. Oh, that's what I was thinking of. Where did I put them? I got some nozzles for you, Diesel. There's a 2, a 6, 3 4s, and an 8 in that particular set. The other ones, I went ahead and ordered that one as a secondary, because the first ones I ordered, I did not realize that Amazon did their nice thing of, oh, you ordered 2. It's now going to double the delivery time, and it's like sometime next week, I think. And you know me, I got impatient. So I'm just folding that wire over some to double up on itself. Come on, focus. There we go. To give it a little bit more meat when we do our spade connector. Hopefully that will be enough to, said spade, but it's actually a fork. Hopefully that's enough for it to latch onto. And it is. So that's one side. We'll do this other one the same way. And then the other side, we'll get a ferrule connector, because that's the side that's going to go into the whatchamacallit, the octopus, or not the octopus board, the manta board. The extruder is tight. Even on the lowest level, it bites into the filament. Well, how can I put this? That's how they kind of work, is they bite into the filament and pull it along, like the premise behind extruding. There's a slight difference in the overall length there. So I'm going to trim that down. a little bit. I am going to leave a little bit of an offset just to make the farther loop go. But and these will be ferrule connectors so that we can strip a little bit more off of this end than normal because we're going into the ferrule. And we'll grab the smallest ferrules that we have, because these are 24 gauge FEP wire. They're not really that thick. Hey, yes I am. So the white ones here are for 22 gauge. We're going to make it work with our 24 gauge FEP wiring. Like normal, we'll give it a little tug, make sure that it crimped onto the wire sufficiently. Good to go on both of those. Now, when we go to install this, one, we need to remember which heater we're connecting it to. And two, we cannot go into heater 2 or 3. We can go into 0 or 1, but we cannot go into 2 or 3. I'm going to go into 1, just because I know the toolhead board and the way that it's set up. The config for the toolhead board is at the end and overwrites the standard config for the extruder, which if I put this into HE1, it would basically, I don't know, we'd have issues. We'd have a conflict. So we're not going to go into 2 or 3 because the thermistor outputs I'm using for 2 and 3 are being used for the PT1000 thermistors and the motors. So it's more of just trying to ensure that when we install this, we have a minimum chance of any conflicts. Grab my fix-it again because I'm going to need the Phillips head bit and my flathead bit. And I'm going to sit down on the ground again and probably sit down right in the way. So let me see if I can't pull this over and sit down at the side. And I think I'm going to actually start off with the this side over here. There is a positive and a negative for the input. I really don't think it matters because the positive is over here. I will take the slightly longer cable and put it on this side. The negative. I mean, it's trigger for a heater. I really don't think polarity matters on the connector, but we'll see. Let me look. This is a Manta M8P. Let me look at the thing, at the pinout diagram. So the negative is on this side of the board, positive being that side, and we're going to go into HE1, which will be the positive is towards the power terminal. So the negative, which I have that cable here, is going to go on that side. Our positive is going to come around and go right next to it. Maybe. All right, so both of those are in there nicely. We can bring these down and I'll figure out how to tighten them up, keep them nice and neat and as out of the way as possible. And that's kind of all we're going to do. I am not going to do any more because the rest is going to be mains wiring for the bed, where I'm going to actually have the bed installed to do it. I'm going to do the 3 Z motors off stream because I'm shortening one and then basically replacing the front one so that I can make them longer. So I'll put in new motor wires that are long enough to give me the distance needed. So I'll do that off stream probably tomorrow night. Hey Liz, how's it going? So if you have thermistors for the motor, is overheating then a possible issue? So once again, these 2 motors are the Devil Design Kraken motors. We're going to be pumping 48 volts into these at over 2 amps. These can take 3 amps of current. So we're probably going to be going 2.5 amps at 48 volts. And so there are thermistors embedded in these motors so that we can just track the the heat, or the heat of those motors, especially since we're going to be in an enclosure. Because if we don't track the heat, then we could lead to skip steps or motor seizure. And yeah, I'm going to go spend time with Mrs. Dragon, Jedi Spidey. And yes, like I said, we do have a beacon probe underneath here. You can't see it because I got the blue tape covering up the hot end that I cannot show you guys. Once we get the bed and everything on here, I will take some motion shots and stuff and get approval to show it off. I just cannot show you a close-up of the tool head. But we're getting really, really close to having this thing fully wired. And we could potentially have it fully wired on Thursday and ready to start rocking and validating our our configuration. So with that, thank you so much for being here tonight. Let me move this out of the way so I don't step backwards and trip over it, because I know me. Thank you very much for being here tonight, everybody, and hanging out with me. I know that this is a little bit weird of a stream, just because we've got, me sitting down on the ground and working on this printer literally on the ground here, and I don't have a really good view. What I really need to do is get a table in here that I can set a printer up on, similar to what we've got over here for the rat rig, and that will let me set it up here and work on larger printers at this level. The good news, though, is the next printer build is definitely fitting on the bench, because it's the Micron Plus R1 build for Zura. We're going to have to do some tearing down, some rebuilding, because he started to build it and then they came out with the Rev 1, and he just does not have the time to figure out how to dig through the CAD to make things right. And as you can see, we do that often here on this stream. So yeah, thanks a lot, everybody. Let me check real fast who we can raid out to. I'm pretty sure it's 9 o'clock, so that guy Giano might be streaming soon if he's still not lurking around here. We got Stephen Poole. Static Tides is doing wig styling. Sid Heresy's doing some space station player work, some electronics work. Science is not up and running just yet. Astro Canuck is up. Am I out carp fishing? I don't know. We got Unspooled episode 12 over with Moji going on right now. What's everybody thinking? Anybody have a preference on where we raid out to this evening? Anybody? Nobody? Nope. Okay. Random pick of the draw. Like I said, science hasn't started yet. Then Heresy's up and running and doing some electronics work. So let's go over to Moji. We'll go over to Moji. Boom. All right, everybody. Thank you much for being here this evening. Let's head over to Moji and show some love. Get your raid emotes ready to go so that we can throw some raid emotes when we head on over there. And everybody, thank you so much for being here and hanging out with me tonight. I will see you guys on Thursday. Probably not tomorrow night. I think I just need to get back into my routine. But I will see you guys on Thursday night. And Saturday is, like I said, the buy-sell trade day over at Ecovate. I may set up a camera out there and do some streaming while I'm out there for that. So thank you everybody for being here. Have a great night. Stay safe and stay cool. And we'll talk to y'all on Thursday. Bye-bye now. For those of you that are watching this later on, either as a VOD on Twitch or even over on YouTube, thank you so much for being here. If you like the content, please like and subscribe below. Be sure to check that bell to get notified of future videos. And speaking of future videos, YouTube's going to be suggesting one right there. Thanks a lot all.